All right, welcome class. Good to be with you via internet yet again. All right, I'm going to read you a brief part of Daniel Carlin's hardcore history from his series of the Mongols. Okay. All right. So in 2015, a group of spies from Shah Muhammad, the leader of Khwarezm Empire, Muslim empire in Central Asia, traveled to China. They were interested in invading China, as the two kingdoms of Khwarezm and China were thought to be the two most powerful empires in the world of their time. So they made their way to Jiaqing, that's modern day Beijing. They could tell something was wrong. The roads were largely empty. They had not seen a person for miles. This was supposed to be one of the most populated empires in the world. And on the road to its capital, the spies saw no one. They noticed a huge mountain miles away that appeared to be snow-capped. This was not on their map, and they walked towards the mountain. But as they got closer, they discovered it was not a snow-capped mountain, and the giant hill was one of skeletons. The road became greasy as they walked closer to the mountain. They noticed that on each side of the road were corpses, and the grease was the result of the endless supply of the dead. Those bodies were slain by a group that invaded China, the Mongols. So this description is pretty terrifying, and it's what the Mongols were, a group of people that brought fear and destruction to everyone. They weren't necessarily bringing this. Normally, when we hear history, we hear of people bringing destruction to the weak. We hear of groups bringing destruction to the vulnerable. The Mongols, on the other hand, were a group that brought destruction to the world's most powerful, and it's a stunning but terrifying development. Okay, so what's the background of the Mongols? Well, going back to the Mongols, you have to realize that Mongolia is a very big area that has very few people, and this is an empty area. It's hard to live here. They think there were probably maybe about 100,000 Mongols total, okay, as opposed to tens of millions, maybe 100 million Chinese at this time. Okay, so this is a small area. There's no cities. Their leader is a guy by the name of Genghis Khan. It used to be Temujin, actually, and his father was killed. And basically, the story is that he had an axe to grind. He was a very, very angry person. Okay, but also a very charismatic and smart person. Okay, so he unites a couple different nomadic tribes, including the Mongols, and he eventually conquers what at that time was the largest empire in the history of the world. Still one of the largest empires in the history of the world. I think the only larger empire would be the British when they had Australia, India, South Africa, Canada, and other colonies. Okay, this empire would stretch from China to Hungary and Poland. I'm going to zoom ahead to the next page that shows this Mongol Empire. Now, this may be a little suspicious. This part about India, I'm not sure they actually conquered this part, but the rest of this is basically true. Okay, you see this giant, massive land. Over here to the right, where my mouse is, are the Koreas, and then China. Okay, some of this land here is pretty empty. Most of this is Russia. And then he gets all the way into Eastern Europe. He's in Iraq over here. These are places that today we don't look at these places as culturally similar at all. And yet, this tiny group of people who lived in this rural area who weren't literate and didn't even have um, cities conquered this huge area. So it's an incredible story, although a very, very brutal one. So going back to this, why were they so good at conquering? The Mongols were really good at conquering because a couple things here. They were really skilled on horse. Okay, uh, I think all of us have probably, and some of you may actually be this person, seen someone that's just been on a bike since they were really young, or a skateboard since they were really young. They have a comfortability with that. That's how the Mongols are. They are nomadic people. They were not raised like Spartans, where they were trained to be warriors, but they were are trained to be um, nomadic people on a horse. And so have this incredible comfort on a horse. And so when they go to war, they are very, very able to be on that horse to fire a bow and arrow. They also know how to use a horse for food sometimes when they have to, so they don't need supply lines. So they would sometimes drink horse's milk, which people say would be gross, but they were willing to do it. So they didn't need these supply lines that most militaries would normally need. Sorry, and they could fire bow and arrow while on horseback, accurately and quickly and effectively. Secondly, their battle tactics were really advanced. They did things that most other armies didn't do. Um, we've all seen in a sport a certain team does things differently and initially captures the other team off guard. Okay, that's how the Mongols are. They do things differently. They retreat a lot, they pretend like they're losing, and then they oftentimes defeat their opponent. These people probably were outnumbered in every single battle. Every single battle. And they don't come from this extremely technologically advanced society either. Okay? So their ability to win battle after battle despite being outnumbered shows an incredible military tactical side to them. Okay? They're also really good at communication. They have kind of like a Pony Express where messages are delivered across their giant empire. And because they're very good at horseback, because these different stations have a fresh horse, they're able to deliver messages really quickly over a huge empire. Okay, they're also incredibly brutal, very brutal. They are uh, very, very, um, they when they go to cities, they destroy them, and that may be cruel and ethically horrible, and it was. I don't mean to make it sound like this is okay what they did. It's not. But at the same time, when they do this, they scare other cities into surrendering. So there was a reason that they did this. Um, and then lastly, they were also known for promoting people on merit. A lot of other militaries, people get promoted by who you know, who your family is. And in this case, like there's one story where Genghis Khan's horse was shot out from underneath him in battle. So they still win the battle. And afterwards, Genghis Khan wants to know who's the person that shot his horse out from under him. And it turns out he finds a person and he makes him part of the Mongol Empire or Mongol army, and that person becomes one of his generals. And the reason for that is he thought this guy's a good soldier if he was able to kill his horse, if he was able to shoot his horse. He must be a skilled soldier. So that's an example of how they were more interested in how can you help us than necessarily are you for us or against us. Okay? All right, so now what I want you guys to do is you're going to use uh, this these sets of questions here, okay? And there's some links here as well, and there's this chart, okay? And then you're going to go on the agenda and you're going to answer them on kind of like, I call it an assessment. It's basically a worksheet, but it's on Buzz, and basically it's some of the questions are short answer, and some of the questions are multiple choice, okay? So go ahead and get to work there. We're learning about how this very, very rural, small group of people conquered the largest empire at that time, the largest empire in the history of the world. Okay? All right, go ahead and get to work and have a good day.